Hello guys, welcome back to the nest. Hope you're all keeping well. Welcome back to another movie reaction. I just want to say I am so sorry. I did not want to. At first I didn't want to do this one, but I thought it over, and it's a big movie from 1971. I'm going to be putting a disclaimer in the description. This is a very controversial film well, kind of still is, but I'm sure there are more movies nowadays that'll have more controversy. But I think for back then, for 1971, this was just a little bit extreme. But tonight's movie reaction is A Clockwork Orange. That's right, A Clockwork Orange. Yeah, disclaimer, this is a controversial movie. It covers a lot of extreme themes. Now I will say, whenever I watch this movie, I'm like, this is completely fucked up. Like, the film was directed by Stanley Kubrick. You remember Stanley Kubrick? He was the guy who directed 2001: A Space Odyssey, film from 1968. Now, I will say I do think this has a lot more action, a lot more going on than 2001: A Space Odyssey. But it's quite brutal. It tells the story of a young teenager named Alex, and he runs his gang, or droogs as he calls them, and it's set in Britain in the future, and basically there's no law and order anymore. Like, there is the police, but unfortunately they're not as strong as they usually are. I don't know how far in the future it's set back in 1971, maybe in like the 1980s or something. I'm not too sure, but yeah, you can definitely see it. Some people have their hair dyed, and the fashion's a wee bit more upbeat. There's still tapes. Like, I do know that nowadays tapes definitely aren't a thing. The cassette players. It's all just downloaded stuff that you listen to. But yeah, Alex and his gang, they go around taking part in ultra violence. They beat up the homeless and rival gangs. They steal off people. They attack women. Now, I don't want to say the word because it's fucking disgusting, but you know what I mean. And basically they kicked us all off by going into this milk bar, by drinking this milk that's got like what drugs in it. Milk plus Velocet, Centenet, or Drinkrum, which is what we were drinking to kick off the good old ultra violence. Yeah, even the mannequins and everything, the setup, I will admit the setup is gorgeous. Like, I think Space Odyssey was had a lot of fancy stuff in it, but I keep forgetting that this is set in the future. As the elderly homeless person says, "There's no law and order anymore. Let's the young get on to the elderly." Also, Alex may be a leader, but he doesn't treat his fellow droogs. Now, I will say, I don't get the language in this movie that they use. Like, it's some sort of teenage slang they had back in the days. It sounds Russian, and if Alex is a big fan of classical music, particularly Beethoven, which is a wee bit weird considering most teenagers like all the popular stuff going around. You find the odd teenager who likes a bit of like classical music. Like Beethoven and Elgar. I don't know. Beethoven's probably the most famous composer that I know. I don't listen to classical music myself, but it's beautiful to listen to in this movie. I like how I realise that the whole soundtrack of the music that plays in this movie, it's all just classical stuff. And basically he treats his droogs for being a bastard with no manners. Yeah, like, he's got fucking manners himself. And I feel sorry for his parents because they actually don't know what's going on. What's going on in his social life. They think he's working, helping out somewhere, when really he's going around beating people up. He knows it's wrong. I know it's a film character, but the thing is, he knows it's wrong, but he just doesn't care. And he sees his violence as a form of art. Yeah, paintings are a form of art. Movies are a form of art. And songs are a form of art. Beating people up and being violent is not fucking art. And all he says when he's going to hurt someone is just, "Video well, little brother, video well." He beats his droogs up, and I will say I like this part is when he gets what he deserves. This is a very iconic scene where he breaks into the home of this rich woman who owns a lot of these cats, And she's basically called the cops on him because, as you remember, he uses the same words that, like an idiot, he uses the same words that he used to get into the house of the writer and his wife, who he attacked. And whenever he gets in, he beats the woman to death with a big statue that's in the shape of a dick. I will say, YouTube, I hope I'm okay putting this video up. You know, I know it's a very controversial movie, but you know this, guys, I will say this video has to be done. Like, this movie had to be reacted to, because it's a very big film, and it's still a great movie, but it's mad. And it also shows what happens if you're too violent. So basically he, as revenge for roughing them up, Dim hits him over the head with a milk bottle and allows Alex to be arrested by the police. And it turns out that he's become a murderer. I've just come back from the hospital, your victim has died. Now, I don't think this is a long enough sentence, but Alex pretty much only gets 14 years in prison, and he doesn't even feel remorse for what he's done. Like, he may be reading the Bible, but all you see in his mind is just he takes part in the violence that was in the Bible, you know. And he hears of this new technique called the Ludovico technique, that and he says that he wants to be cured, he wants to be good, but really he just wants to be let out of prison. And he's only served 2 years of his sentence. 14, he's only served 2, and it turns out that the what they do is they pry his eyes wide open. You know, can't even shut. I can't even shut my eyes, you know. And they basically put eye drops on him. I wonder if the actor's name is Malcolm McDowell, I wonder if they actually, how sore his eyes would have been going through this. And he wears a headset and they inject him with this drug. And when he watches films that have violence in it, he starts to feel sick. Now, I will say it may stop him from being violent, but at the same time, he can't even defend himself from a fight. And he can't even listen to his favourite kind of music anymore. Do you know what I mean? And after 2 weeks, you know, even his patrol officers, you know, do say, you know, you've basically just robbed him off his free will. And I think that's what the title, A Clockwork Orange, relates to. Like, you know, he's basically just a mechanism, like it's a juicy, ripe organism that's just been used as a mechanism. You know, the government is basically just using Alex as a like, a lab animal. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, Alex kind of deserves all this. Like, and whenever he turns out that his family has just lodged his room out to this man named Joe, he breaks down saying, I've suffered, and I've suffered, and I've suffered. You've made others suffer. It's only fair you suffer the same, and you suffer even more. I will say, guys, like, I don't know whether that's meant to make you feel sorry for him. I certainly can't just feel sorry for Alex, because he's a monster. He's hurt people, mentally and physically. He's stole off people. And he's killed someone. He killed the cat lady. And you just can't, I just have no sympathy for him at all. And then the tables get turned on him, like the old tramp beats him up, you know, Georgie and Dim have become police officers, you know. It's weird seeing that they've stepped away from all the violence and they've become officers of the law. It's quite ironic. And they beat him up, but then he comes across the home of the writer he assaulted, you know, he lives with a bodybuilder, and he's now crippled him. He's in a wheelchair. He doesn't instantly recognise him, but Alex makes the biggest mistake of singing in the Rain, which is what he used to attack the writer and his wife, and he is pissed off the fuck. More wine! He traps him in the room, and he basically plays the Beethoven music and tortures him until he feels sick, and Alex just can't take anymore. The only thing he can do is just commit suicide by jumping out the window. However, he manages to survive, and thus proves, I survived because your humble narrator would not be here today to tell you the story. Humble narrator? Yeah, right. I like how he breaks the fourth wall. Alex's parents seem to have taken him back, and I was quite disappointed to hear that the writer, you brought harm to someone very, very dear to him, and apparently cost her life. Yeah, it did lead to her death. He attacked her, which led to trauma, led to her fucking death. And even Alex, he still doesn't feel remorse. He basically and the problem is the Ludovico technique is worn off. Like, he no longer has an aversion towards violence. He's back to his old violent self. He he basically gets so many privileges, like he'll get a job and a house, and the press, wants to interview him, and also the government apologises, and he's allowed to listen to Beethoven again. I don't know how I'm meant to feel towards Alex, to be honest. Like, he gets what he deserves, and then he gets what he loves again. He becomes violent again. He'll probably get a new gang, and he'll just be back to square one. And in the end, he even proves, I was cured, alright. Yeah, he was cured of his violence, and then he gets cured of the cure. And that's where the title of Clockwork Orange comes from. Also like that shot of Alex at the very end with that girl. But yeah, what I found out, this movie was actually banned in the UK for so many years because it led to so many young kids like copying the crimes in this movie, and it was already seen as such a violent movie for its time, for 1971, and Stanley Kubrick was like, you know what, I can't fucking do this anymore. I'm pulling this movie away from a mainstream audience in the UK, and I did hear like 27 years later it was allowed to be shown again. Well, I think it's because, well, we'll not get to that yet, but maybe after a few months' time when I get to the more recent years, I'll tell you guys why. But I did enjoy this movie. Like, it was so fucking disturbing, but it was a brilliant movie, and I'm sorry, I hope I don't offend anyone by putting this video up. I'm putting a disclaimer in the description, but I hope people can understand that, I didn't feel right leaving this movie out. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Do take care of yourselves. Great movie, but extreme. Probably the most controversial movie of all time. I don't know if I should say this, but I feel like I kind of look like Alex a wee bit. I've just got the hair and some similarities there. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Do hope you enjoyed the review. I'm sorry to have to put this video up, but it needed to be done. Subscribe, turn on the notifications, and that means all notifications. Comment what you would like to see next, and tell your friends about it. I shall see you guys in the next video. I've only got a couple more movies to do from 1971. Thank you so much for watching. Love you all to death, and I'll see you in the next reaction.